Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Mamoru Hosoda's Summer Wars from the year 2009. So yes, here we are, back again, and here we are with an anime review. So that's a big thing because some of you may be thinking, oh wow, this is interesting. This has been a number of months, more than half a year actually. I believe that. Yes, I've gone by without reviewing an animated film. Full stop. Let alone anime, of course. And here it is on Blu-ray. In this review here we'll have no spoilers, so you don't need to worry about that. Just the basic structure of the film and my kind of feelings towards, in general towards the different acts of the film. That's as far as I'll go, in terms of spoilers really. But yes, here it is on Blu-ray. It's a film that I picked up a while ago, and it was on one of my Blu-ray updates. So yes, here we are, finally watching this, and finally returning to kind of review animated films. I'm now fine to do that. A number of reasons that I kind of stopped that for a while was, well, one of them being, I just kind of ended it on a couple of high notes really. One being the kind of animated kind of high note in general, which was Bambi back in August. I believe that was the last animated film that I reviewed really. I've not reviewed any films since then. I don't believe, at least on the channel. And anime in terms of that, it was Wolf Children back in July. Really, it was one of the last ones that I reviewed, I believe. They were big kind of emotional films, and ones that mean so much to me. So I kind of thought, we'll give it a couple of weeks at least. Kind of a month went by, and I was going to get around to watching more and buying more actually for the first time. That's the thing. I didn't buy a few for quite a while, and then of course, as we know, I think most of you know, shortly after that, there was this news about the changes being made to YouTube, and I'm not going to get into it too specifically, but of course, it kind of made me think. It's a bit confusing. Can I review this? Can I talk about that? Just in terms of animated films, because of course with them changes that came into place, kind of last year, of course, to YouTube, and I was just confused. I was very confused, like many people, creators specifically, of course. But yes, even after that initial kind of prolonged confusion, really, I think. Still, I kind of thought, I'll leave it a bit, and I will return to it. But it will be probably a little bit longer. And here we are, finally, April. So it's been some time, sadly. But yes, here we are to talk about this film, and hopefully we'll be talking about more animated films, very, more frequently now. So there we are. We're finally back, and very significantly back with this film because it's actually made, of course, by Hosoda, a filmmaker, who, of course, Wolf Children and The Girl Who Lived Through Time, being the big films, that I certainly responded to last year, of course, watching both of these for the first time, and of course, seeing Mirai as well. I didn't review that film, but I did. I loved that film too, but those two films, Wolf Children and The Girl Who Lived Through Time, they're the ones that just truly blew me away in every regard possible. They were just absolute masterpieces for me, and they really made it high. That's for sure, onto my favourite films list. Extremely high, and I just thought, this guy, he really is a genius, in my opinion, and I think I can certainly say that he's among my favourite, filmmakers, really, at least on, a list, whether it be kind of top 50 or not, maybe not, maybe that's not the case, but, I think, or at least, at the moment, I've only seen a few of his films. Of course, he could make more and more, kind of great films, but, I thought, this guy is just not talked about too much, as much as I would have thought. I think really he's, I do prefer, I think I do prefer Miyazaki, to this individual, but I think other than that, I actually think he's right up there with the best kind of anime, kind of filmmakers. Actually, he really is a true. visionary, and actually, I think his films, his best films, are right up there with the very very finest kind of anime films. I really think he's just a true kind of artist, actually, and really they blew me away. And this film, of course, kind of in the middle of his career, of course after The Girl Who Lived Through Time, before kind of Wolf Children and Mirai, of course, being one of his recent works. Of course, 2018 that came out, and I've not seen The Boy and the Beast, which came out in 2015. That's one of the only ones I have left now. Of his current works. Of course, he's not been making films for say as long as Miyazaki or anything like that. So of course, I look forward to the rest of his films that he makes, of course, in the future. Very much excited for that. But this film, it seemed very very different to the films I'd seen from him, and this is it's a sci-fi film, a kind of a comedy, rom-com, you could say, drama, and kind of very very interesting film. The kind of plot of this, I didn't read up too much about, but it's a very very interesting film, and it's one that I thought we'll see what it's like. Maybe I won't kind of take to this as much, as some of his other works, and I think it's definitely something that doesn't, maybe appeal to me as much, on paper as, say, Wolf Children. But there we go. This film, I simply put it in and watched it. Of course, was very excited to see it, and just simply to see another Hosoda picture, and certainly by the end of it, I think it's another highly enjoyable film, and it's not a film that I love personally as much as Wolf Children, whereas the other works that I've seen from him, even Mirai, I do prefer that, but I do think this is highly enjoyable, and I think there's greatness in there. Really, overall, despite having some issues with the film, kind of directions it took, I think are a bit kind of confusing, and definitely a little bit inconsistent. Despite that, I did overall love the experience, and I do think it's a highly highly entertaining film, and there is true greatness in there, and some really such creativity in this film, and I think for a point, I think actually this was really building itself up to be a real stunning piece of work, and I think it would have overall been a film that actually I would have taken over Mirai, but then it did kind of peter out, and start going in different directions that I didn't like as much. I still love the film overall, but I do think it kind of takes some turns here and there after the kind of 50-minute mark. I would say kind of in my mind, at least off memory, and it kind of goes in different ways, and I wasn't as engaged, ever, as much as that first kind of 50 minutes or so, and it's a big event, a pivotal event around that point, and of course it's very very maybe unexpected moment, you could say, but then after that, after that initial kind of that's really wow, that moment, it starts to go in a strange direction, of course. But yes, this main plot, I won't kind of spoil this too much at all. I would just say the basic outline that you can kind of find, on a basic summary. But yes, this kind of virtual world of Oz is kind of introduced to us, in the opening scene, and it kind of concerns, it's basically this virtual world, and it influences, of course, everything in life, and yes, you've got this kind of moderator, part-time moderator of Kenji, and he's a kind of student, of course, and at the same time he is this moderator, of course, of this kind of virtual world, virtual reality world, and yes, he basically he's this kind of it's kind of this genius, considered this genius at mathematics, and yes, he moderates this kind of this site, and then he's very shortly after you kind of see the introduction to him, he's kind of asked by this individual, Natsuki, to kind of go along with him and kind of accompany her and pretend to be her fiance, of course, at this kind of family reunion, and of course the grandmother, of course, the great grandmother, of Natsuki is going to be 90, and it's kind of birthday party, of course, and yes, you basically have this this character of Kenji going along, pretending to be kind of this fiance, and it all kind of unfolds from there, and you've got this you could say melodrama, that kind of unfolds, and you've got this whole kind of family, out in the kind of in the countryside more, of course, and you have this family, and quite a large number of characters in this. Despite that, I really got attached to pretty much all of these characters in some way, and I really loved the way that this family was kind of portrayed, and I love the comedy, in this first act, and I think it was just really so immersive, and it's a very very particular tone, this film. Despite that, I do think it was just highly investing, and I loved the entire kind of first 45, 50 minutes really, and I think there was maybe a couple of things that were kind of very strange to me, but I think despite that, I truly loved this film at that point, and I think it wasn't one of my absolute favourite anime films, but it was kind of on that kind of list, if you will, and I think overall I wouldn't say it's it's one of my favourite anime films overall. After that it does take a turn, as I say, and I can't give away any kind of specifics here, without kind of spoiling the plot, but I will say that it does change, in tone, and kind of in the way it kind of meshes these two worlds. Of course, we see this virtual world, and at the same time, it kind of jumps back to the kind of real world. These individuals, of course, and Kenji, of course, is our main protagonist. But of course, Natsuki was heavily kind of focused on in the first act. But then, kind of one of the things it does is kind of it goes off a little bit in kind of the focus of the relationship, and I love the kind of comedy in that relationship at first, but unfortunately it did kind of go off a little bit, and kind of the focus, the film's focus kind of was maybe a bit all over the place at times, just in a couple of instances. It's kind of, I wasn't sure who I was kind of meant to be truly feeling things for, and it's kind of very interesting film. I think it doesn't kind of the balance between the two different worlds in the film. This is the thing. I don't think it perfectly is in balance, in tune, and I don't think it kind of it brings it together, in the end, perfectly at all, really. But I think despite that, it does kind of remain highly enjoyable for most of the film, and I think there's moments in the final act that I really loved. Again, I think the middle of the film was kind of the weakest part, although I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. There's never a point where this film is bad at all. It just kind of, it doesn't kind of live up to the at least for me, the kind of potential that's set up in the first 50 minutes. Really, the universe that's created, the kind of subtle hints at these different moments that were kind of building up, these different relationships, perhaps, kind of friendships as well. I felt that it was less enjoyable, especially after kind of a big event, that happened in the film, around that 50-minute mark, and for a time, it was just kind of a little bit unfocused, and definitely a little bit not random, I wouldn't say that, but it's just, yes, very much hard to kind of really stay 100% immersed in that sense, in this narrative. That's the thing, but I did enjoy the individual moments in these two worlds, for the entire film, but I think just this kind of balance, which was very, very pivotal, in my opinion. I think the balance of these two worlds was never fully, in the end, realised. I don't feel some really genius ideas, and the presentation was just wonderful. I love the kind of the style, of this Oz world, virtual world. Of course, I loved seeing this, and I loved the kind of everything that was going on, in this kind of world, of Oz, and the different rules that was set up, and I just think in the end it kind of follow through and develop them ideas, consistently through the entire runtime, and it just kind of, in the end, I was kind of a little bit disappointed in these different kind of traits that it was showing at first. And yeah, it's just these elements of this world of Oz, kind of. I wouldn't say it kind of overtook this kind of family drama, but I do think it didn't quite perfectly mesh with this, and in essence, it's kind of two different films. At times in the second half of the film in particular. But again, I think the characters in this film are highly enjoyable. I think Kenji is a great character as a protagonist, highly kind of enjoyable, and someone I really rooted for. And I think just this initial kind of nearly an hour, you could say, of the film is just so enjoyable. The balance between comedy, kind of melodrama as well, and this kind of this dynamic and all the different characters you meet is highly charming, and a sense of wonder as well. In that first act, especially, is really wonderful to see, and I love the kind of mystery to the film. I love the kind of the exposition of this kind of this main family. Of course, you hear about the different historical moments within this clan, if you will, and the past kind of the history to this family and all these different generations. I loved all this. I love the themes that are explored in the film. In this sense of legacy, really wonderfully tapped into there, and I think mostly that actually followed through. I really enjoyed hearing about this family, even in the second half. It just wasn't quite balanced perfectly for me, and it did take a kind of different direction. It wasn't as emotionally as investing. It wasn't as because there's moments where maybe different moments as in the end of the film as well that don't quite follow through, because they could possibly at times I feel there was kind of cut away to a slight joke at times here and there, and the way the film ends, I think could have delivered a bit more of a punch, emotionally, and in satisfying ways, but because of the tone of the film, it wasn't quite fully perfect, fully realised there. I think it did kind of take away a little bit from the overall the culmination of this piece, and in that sense, the emotional payoffs, in that sense, was definitely hindered a little bit from the slightly inconsistent tone that the film had. But overall, really definitely greatness in there, and I think it's very close to being a great film. I did love this film actually, and I think I really adored the first 50 minutes or so, and then of course for the rest of the film I did really enjoy it. I just didn't quite love it consistently to kind of call it a great film. It didn't come together in the way that I thought perhaps it kind of should have done, just for my liking, of course, but overall a highly enjoyable film, and definitely a unique, creative, and just thoroughly charming anime film. So overall, of course, I think at times, this is definitely a wonderful film. I did thoroughly enjoy my experience with this, and it was great to see another anime film. It's a very pleasing, indeed, genre, of course, of cinema for me. I'm a massive fan. Anime films. I've not really seen too much shows in that sense. Anime shows, but anime films, that's where my area is. Certainly, I think a kind of genre that I'm obsessed with, really, and I think this is not one of my favourite anime films, but despite that, I do think it's a highly entertaining film, and very wonderful moments, of course, and it's a very peaceful, relaxing film, despite having high stakes, of course. I don't want to kind of get into specifics, of course. That would be more spoilers, but I do think it's very interesting to see the kind of blend of this melodrama and this big threat that's kind of portrayed in the film, and I think the two worlds are not perfectly intertwining in this film, but I do think it's very impressive to see how this is handled. It's not perfectly handled, but it is highly impressive. Considering it's very risky film to kind of do, and to open the film with this virtual world actually is very interesting as well. Maybe very bold as well, you know, to kind of open it with this and not perhaps kind of open it with the actual main characters of the film and then maybe lead on to this. But you know, it's very unique film. I've not seen an anime like this before, and I think it's very different to what I usually I'm kind of drawn to actually with anime films. I like the more fantastical ones, of course, and this is sci-fi, much more heavy on that. But you know, it is a very interesting film, and I do love this actually, and I do think it's very close, very close to being great. And who knows, you know, on a kind of on a rewatch, I could be calling this a great film, but for that reason, it's very close, and I would give it for now an 89%. I think in that sense, it's bordering great, you know, because I did love the film, the characters, the location, you know, wonderful location, wonderful, beautiful visuals to the film, and the virtual world as well. I really loved how that was portrayed. This kind of different, you know, distinct kind of look to the film, the art style there, really loved, and yes, this kind of these moments in the second half, at times, you know, it's definitely a little bit underwhelming, but at the same time, those moments of greatness, once again, and the final act, really definitely picked up, and I think, you know, it never really recovered to the kind of true greatness consistently of the first 50 minutes or so, you know, of memory. But you know, I do think, despite that, you know, it does come together in a way that I did. You know, I kind of got many of the different threads were definitely wrapped up. I was very satisfied, although not fully satisfied in that sense. But I do think, you know, it's quite a unique and wonderful film. It's highly entertaining, and I did really have a great time with this. It's very close to being a great film, but I think just a few things hold it back, and it doesn't quite come together. It doesn't quite mesh in the way that I think you know, a great film would have done, just for my liking. And of course, tell me your thoughts on this film. It's a very unique film, of course, and it's not a film that I've heard really anyone's thoughts on actually. So it'd be very interesting to see what you think of the film. Have you seen this film, of course, firstly, and then of course, yes, your thoughts on this, maybe compared to other anime films, if you've seen any anime films, of course, and yes, all things you know, kind of animation would be great to discuss, and you know, so I love, of course, so many anime films. I can't wait to kind of delve back into this kind of area, truly special and wonderful area of cinema. You know, I really am such a massive fan of anime films, and this is just one of the films, of course, that I've seen. I've seen many anime films now, and I can't wait to kind of delve back in. And yes, this film, you know, of course, it's wonderful on Blu-ray as well, and yes, highly entertaining. A truly unique film, and yes, it's not my favourite, you know, Hosoda picture, but of course, he does, you know, really demonstrate once again why he is so highly regarded by me personally, and I do think he is one of these you know, truly remarkable anime individuals, and I do think, you know, Miyazaki is my favourite, my number one favourite, but I think I would kind of take Hosoda kind of over different anime directors, you know, that aren't kind of Miyazaki perhaps, and I think, you know, these two guys are definitely my favourites, but of course you've got Takahiro as well. You know, the list goes on, of course, but Takahiro is up there as well, and I think, you know, a true master as well. Of course he was. And yes, this film is highly entertaining, quite a wonderful experience, and yes, it was just a very pleasing film. A sense of kind of location and time and place. You know, it was very wonderfully done, and I think, you know, I could have kind of loved this film more if it kind of kept up to that kind of, you know, initial you know, kind of mastery at times, actually for me. And but you know, I think despite that, I did love the film overall, and it did pick up again in that final act, just not to the level that I kind of I was kind of into this film, you know, in the sense of the first sort of 50 minutes or so. But despite that, highly recommendable film. If you like anime films, certainly check this out at least. And yes, tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think of this film, and you know, anything anime related, animation, and of course, as always, you know, cinema related. What do you think of this film? But anything, you know, in relation to cinema, it would be great to kind of discuss, you know, in the comments, of course. And yes, very, very good film, bordering on great, but I think not quite there. But despite that, it doesn't matter. You know, it's a film that I loved, actually. And yes, some more films to come up on the channel very soon, in discussion, of course. And one of them being a film I watched tonight, which is, yes, Streetcar Named Desire. You know, that will be one of the films that I'll be talking about hopefully this week. And yes, I look forward to that very much. And of course, more anime films. And yes, hope you're all you know, doing okay. And yeah, as always, yes, great to discuss. Carry on with this kind of dialogue that we have. Yeah, of course, me and of course you viewers to the channel. And yes, it's always great to discuss cinema. And yes, just let's have a discussion. And yes, continue this kind of relationship. You know, of course, and carry on with the channel as we go forward. And yes, as always, thanks for watching.